So we're back in with Carl. It's just starting this one's a bit weird because obviously it's just another one in the All In series, but it's what Carl said, it feels like Christmas Eve because obviously this is going to be the last one before the lockdown, because in 2 days we're back in lockdown. Gyms are getting shut, or supposedly getting shut so far, so that's just how we're taking it. So what we'll kind of do today is just give you a little bit of something to watch before lockdown from a training perspective. Carl's just going to stick some stuff together and make it sort of nice and like dynamic and enjoyable to watch for you, but also just going to go through some tips of how to keep hold of your progress and keep progressing through lockdown, because at the end of the day, you know, we don't know if it's going to be 4 weeks or not. Obviously there's people say, oh, it's definitely going to be longer, people say it's not. I'd rather just not listen to that kind of thing and just accept that right now in my head I've been told 4 weeks. 4 weeks is more than enough time to make progress and definitely keep hold of the progress I've made so far. So in my head, that is the goal for me, that's the goal for all my clients, and if I can help you guys kind of like do that as well, then you know we're all winning. And at the end of the day, the last thing you need right now is negativity around you and people talking that negative talk. For me, it's all about just staying positive, keeping all the progress we've got, keeping on making progress. And if we can help you out with a little bit with this video today, then that's what we're going to do. So we've got a push session. This is the first time me and Carl have filmed a push session for All In, so that should be pretty good. And as well, we're at a new gym. So we're at Hard Labour in Warrington, which is actually a gym I used to go to when I was growing up and when I was in college and that. So it's nice to come back here and see how much the gym's improved. This place is actually stacked with Panatta kit, and it's so good. The colour scheme on it is pretty sick as well. It's black and yellow, and like that's like my colour scheme, so it's pretty cool. Carl will obviously be able to give you a better view of the gym than I will with my words, but yeah, we're going to get some good sessions, or have been getting some good sessions in here over the past week. What I'm doing at the minute is sending Cuba over my sessions every day before I do them, just so he knows the volume that I'm training at, because obviously as we're not training together, he used to just set my volume for me day by day, whereas now I send it over to him and he can just yes or no's it. So this is a push session I've already done at this gym. Cuba's okayed the session, so what we'll do is get onto it, get cracking now, and we'll kind of break it up with the lockdown progress tips. So my first tip when it comes to this whole lockdown and not having access to the gym situation is that is one thing that you do or should be doing to progress. So there are so many other variables that we can still control. Nutrition, steps, cardio, just daily routine, supplementation, things like that we can continue doing as we do. We can continue ticking the boxes. If you're not already doing those things, use this opportunity as an opportunity to start doing them, because you will progress by building those things into your routine and starting to double down on them a little bit more. Training is one variable. Yes, obviously training provides the stimulus to the muscle to grow, etc., but we can replicate this as best we can through other methods. This does not stop us from ticking the boxes that go alongside training. So if you already do, continue to do so and just work on them and really make your routine better. Learn a little bit more about when it comes to nutrition, steps, cardio, the reasoning behind them, the best way that suits your body, that kind of thing. And if you're not doing them already, start, because these are variables you can control that will impact your progress. And imagine getting back into the gym with more variables being controlled and more routine in place, you're going to progress even more. So there are two different scenarios, but two different ways which you can use this period to maximise your progress. Simple as that. another thing that I think is going to be very important when it comes to training specifically this lockdown is evidently no one's going to have the amount of load that you've got in the gym. No one's going to have the amount of variations of movements and things like that you've got in the gym. So we have to look at different ways to stimulate the muscle and get what we want out of it. So when it comes to training, you want to be looking at like the tempo that you move at. So we want to be moving much slower through both the concentric and eccentric portions of a movement, basically just to put the muscle under more stress. Under more stress for longer is going to make it work harder, and we're going to get a little bit more out of it from the stimulus point of view. Another thing we can do is like add pauses into the bottom of our reps. We can use different types of training methods like rest pauses, muscle rounds, supersets, even to the extent of like giant sets and things, whatever your kind of recovery capabilities can deal with. But there's loads of methods of training we can use. So I think the main point I was trying to make was don't focus your training over these 4 weeks on loads specifically, because if you try and train with resistance bands and some dumbbells at home and focus on heavy loading and progressing numbers, it's not going to happen. You have to be thinking of different methods of progression. Like for example, weighted press ups with the same amount of weight, but try and beat your reps every time. Or walking lunges for 60 seconds, and every time you do them, add 10 seconds onto your set. Little things like this are different methods of progression and training without needing to specifically use loads. Obviously, if you have load and you have enough to work with, by all means, keep progressing those lifts and be very linear with the method that you do it. But if you don't, which a lot of people won't, I think the best thing to do is think a little bit more outside the box with your methods of training and with the way that you can progress your training. So, like I say, tempo, time under tension within that tempo, and actually utilising the muscle a little bit more, pauses, actually working on your technique. A lot of people move wrong, and you see that day to day in the gym. So work on moving correctly, and then when you get back in the gym, your technique is much improved and you're on a good run of progress from there. So there's loads of little things you can be doing from a training specific perspective, because I think the training itself is what people are worried about the most, because it's the gym that's being taken away from us. So any questions about any of that, drop it below, because I want to make sure that everyone understands what I'm trying to say here and can use it in the best possible way. But yeah, that is what I get all my clients to do. That's what me and Hannah did over the last lockdown period, and I think it's a very, very good way to approach your training this time round. So my next tip for the whole lockdown situation is the way you approach it and your mindset towards it. 4 weeks is not a long time when it comes to timescales of results and progress, bodybuilding and that kind of thing. It's not a long time, so it's very easy to maintain and manage what you've currently got over this time period. It is, however, long enough to do a serious amount of damage to progress if you completely throw everything out the window. We're talking nutrition, all forms of expenditure, your daily routine. You could lose a lot, and I don't just mean in these 4 weeks. Trying to pick that back up after the 4 weeks of eating rubbish and sleeping in late and not being in a routine, trying to get back to that routine is then going to take another 3 or 4 weeks. So before you know it, you're 8 weeks behind just by falling off for 4 weeks. So you have to approach this in a positive way, which thinks, right, at worst, I'm going to end this 4 weeks in as good a position as I started it, because then it's just null and void, nothing happens. And if you can push yourself on to progress over this 4 weeks, if you can be in a better position after these 4 weeks than when you're in right now, you have won. Like, simple as you've won, because that's what you would want to have done even if the gyms were open. In 4 weeks time, you'd want to be better. So if you can do that with no gym, you've 100% won this situation. So it's all about your mentality towards it. And I do think sometimes it's a struggle to understand, because I would never be able to sway the way of falling off the wagon. It just does not make sense to me. But at the same time, I understand how it can, because the gym is such a vital part of this for everyone. From an enjoyment point of view, a mental health point of view, it's big. So I understand where that comes from, but that's where the enjoyment almost has to take a back seat and the necessity has to take a front seat. This is necessary to continue progression and enjoying the gym after this lockdown, after this 4 weeks. So you do the necessary now and the enjoyment will be just the same, if not more, after it. So again, just think a little bit more about how you're going to approach this phase. I've had conversations with clients who haven't dealt with it very well, and I've had conversations with clients who've dealt with it extremely well. And it's just individually dependent. And that's where I'm trying to obviously educate and just kind of rub off on the people around me from this positive mindset point of view. And we can by all means maintain, if not progress, over this period. So the way you think about it and how you mentally approach it is going to be just as important as what you physically do over this time. Think about it. So I guess the last kind of tip, just a bit of advice I wanted to give is kind of just learn to accept it. This is the hand we've been dealt, and how we deal with it is, it's in our control. And all the things I've mentioned so far in this video, they will add up to being able to just accept it. But that is probably going to be the hardest thing for a lot of people. I do think there will still be people annoyed and almost sulking over this 3 weeks into the 4-week lockdown, and that is 3 weeks of completely wasted time. Use this time to get better at something new. Use this time to do something new. And if that means, with what you're doing right now, it means, getting better at your nutrition, getting better at prepping food, getting better at getting your steps in, getting better at a specific movement. Let's say your squat's not very good, your deadlift's not very good, so you've not got as much weight as you normally would have, but it gives you opportunity to work on your technique and really get better at something that you aren't already getting better at, or that you're not already good at. That notion itself and the kind of like pursuit of progress is what keeps us stimulated. Because if you think if we completely break apart what we're doing in the gym and trying to get better as bodybuilders, and just from a fitness perspective in general, all we're trying to do is get better at something. And every time we get a little bit closer, we get a little bit more stimulated, we get a little bit more excited, it gets a little bit more fun. So you need to find something that you can replicate that feeling from to keep you stimulated for these 4 weeks. It could even be a case of like you're deep in a gaining phase, you're due a little cleanup. So for this 4 weeks, you do a 4-week mini cut, get sensitive to food again, pull some body fat off. You've still got relatively enough equipment to stimulate the muscle, like we said. We're in and out, and you go again from a much better place after the 4-week lockdown. Or it may just be maintaining what you're doing right now because you're in a good spot, but getting better at your movements. There's so many things that we can switch the focus to getting better at, and that's what you have to do. You have to replicate that mental stimulus that we get off getting better at the gym, getting better at being bodybuilders. You have to replicate that, and all that and everything I've mentioned today is only going to come and only going to happen if you accept the fact that this has happened. Like I said, it's the hand we've been dealt, and you've got to deal with it. Yeah, push. We've got one more set of triceps left now, then we will go and do a bit of posing, because the posing room here is pretty sick, and I'll just show you kind of like the pre-lockdown rig and just kind of where I'm at the minute in the off-season. Absolutely. So that is a little bit of an insight into where we're up to this off season as well, from a physique and an opposing perspective. I feel pretty good. I'm hovering around about 126 kilos now. I've actually dropped a little bit. We switched my food sources up to things that were a lot easier to eat, a lot more palatable, a lot lower volume, and I do feel like this has helped a lot with just like the amount of food that's constantly in my system and my stomach, and as well just how well I can digest food, and my appetite's picked back up. A lot of water's dropped off. I actually feel leaner, and even Carl said I look leaner than last time we were posing, which is always nice. But it definitely means that there's more room to push. I know you shouldn't set scale weight goals when it comes to an off season, but I'm 100% hunting down 130 kilos. That is that's a weight that I just want to hold nicely. 100%. I would love to be a nice looking 130. That's the goal anyway. But yeah, this video obviously was based around the tips on how to deal with the lockdown that's coming, and I hope you've taken something away from it in terms of how you can adapt what you're doing over the next 4 weeks, just to ensure that you continue making progress as you are, potentially make a little bit more progress, or at least end the lockdown in as good a position as you started it. You know, like I said, this time scale is minuscule in the time scale of results and bodybuilding as a whole, and we've been dealt this hand, and we need to deal with it. It's as simple as that. But any questions or anything like that, drop them below. This is obviously the last All-In episode before the lockdown hits, so I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, please like, share, comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do, and I'll see you in the next one.